Okay, so we are on, and this is the October 22nd group call. So I want to do a bit of a check-in with Drew, and then John, I have a couple comments about your prep. And remember, the request that I make is that you do weekly prep, and the reason for the weekly prep, of course, is because you preset your outcomes, and it really tags what you are able to see, what you pay attention to throughout the week, and that's that's the purpose of presetting the outcomes, the precise preparation. Okay, so Drew, welcome back. And how is it going on the food plan, Drew?
Well, if I'm being honest, and everyone else is very well. I kind of bandwagon in November. I'm sorry, in September.
Well, tell me more. Tell me what happened.
I think some of it was, and I don't know. I guess there's a little bit of a slump in the sense of feeling maybe almost disappointed in myself, or maybe you could say feeling down on myself or depressed or whatever, and just feeling like wasn't being super successful. And when I start to feel that way, I tend I tend to let it take over.
Okay.
To be vulnerable.
Well, it's a routine, and remember the routine. John, are you seeing the videos, by the way, even though you don't have a webcam?
Yeah.
Okay. The routine is, if you follow the routine, it's sort of like trusting. If I take one atom of 2 atoms of hydrogen, 1 atom of oxygen, and I put it together, I'm following a recipe, even though maybe I doubt myself or I don't think that I have the ability to have this work out the way I want it to. I'm following a recipe which has a high predictability of a certain results. I'm going to get water. When I'm flying my airplane, I pull back on the yoke. I get about a 700-foot climb. I have a setting of what's called a prop and a throttle setting of 25/25, and that's full throttle and a 5-degree rise. I know that I'm going to get a certain predicted performance. I'm going to climb at about 700 feet per minute, and at that setting. So it's a setting, and it's a trusting of the machine to work how it's supposed to work, and I get the result. Now, same thing with this plan. If you're so what is the routine? The routine is in the morning, which is where I prefer. You start off with your reading of 1 page of the daybook. And it's finally done, by the way, so as soon as I'll make sure everyone has the latest updated electronic copy, and then I'm going to be selling the actual paper copies if anybody wants that. And the reason I'm selling it is because it cost me over $8,000 to get it published, so see if I can recoup some of that. And but anyway, read 1 page of the book, which is a concept for the day, and then it's meditation, 5 to 10 minutes of quiet time, of time when what you're doing is, and we're going to talk a little bit about this today in terms of the concept portion of this call, but you're increasing the physical size of the prefrontal cortex right behind the eyebrows. You're increasing that, and that is what's that's what has you, the part of the brain that has you do the more difficult thing, has you do the harder thing, has you do the prospecting call when you don't feel like it, has you do the grab some non-caloric beverage when you have a sensation that might be hunger. So the science is behind the meditation, and if you don't feel like doing it, do about 5 minutes, do 5 to 10 minutes. Some of the great teachers, some of the great gurus, most of them all say 30 minutes. For the life of me, don't want to sit down and take 30 minutes time to do that. But anyway, it's, you can get the same scientific results in 5 to 10 minutes. And then it's follow the food plan. And when you have sensations, when you have a big part of the reason, there's 2 reasons why that this is so successful for people, and it's a certainty of success. One is because you're controlling your physiology. You're controlling this from the inside out. So it's not you can't win this battle of willpower. You can't win this battle of discipline. You've got to control your cravings by controlling your physiology, and you control your physiology by the way that we eat, with the high density nutrient calorie foods, with salads being the main meal, with the formula of the food plan. That's how we control our physiology. So what that means is we have low glycemic foods that we're eating, and it's spread out throughout the day in terms of the release of blood sugar and the release of insulin, and so that's how we control our cravings. So if we feel something in between that, if we feel something in the 4 hours or 5 hours in between meals, ordinarily our instinct is to feel this feeling and then feed it, go stuff it with food. But now, if you're eating appropriately on the food plan, then you realize this isn't hunger, it's something else. It's anxiety. And then what I can do is I drink some beverage, so I activate the stretch reflex in the stomach, and I avoid the intake of whatever, because we don't snack. And last night was interesting for me because my wife was sitting down next to me, snacking on something that used to be a binge food for me. You talk about a trigger. She was eating this cereal. I forget what the brand of it was, but it was one of these illusions of healthy cereal that she was eating. The kashi or something like that. And I heard her crunch it, the crunching sound. Now, the crunching sound is a part of what's called the bliss effect, because these food companies, Kellogg's in particular, they have scientists that work for them, and their job is to understand what motivates human eating. And it's the texture, it's the sugar, it's the sweetness, it's the added fat, the added salt, and the added sugar that is the key. And these food manufacturers, they don't design their food for nutrition. They design their food for purchase, for consumer likes and dislikes. And as she was sitting there crunching, that's a part of the persuasiveness of the food. That's a part of the seduction of the food, and just the texture and the sugar and all that. And I told her, don't do that in front of me. I don't need the temptation. But anyway, it was, she didn't do it for very long, and it was snacking. I don't snack. But anyway, if I feel something in between meals, I know it's not hunger, it's anxiety, it's something else, and so just let it pass. And that's part of what the meditation does, is it enables us to have metacognition, which is an awareness of our feelings, and that's really big, because now we can realize I'm feeling something. In the past, I would have stuffed this feeling with eating. Now I know it's not, so I'll be able to let it go and just to be with. And this is also important, and this comes from our meditation. Just the practice of being with this sensation or this feeling and not having to do something to change it. Just acknowledge it, be with it, notice it, and it'll dissolve on its own and go away. All right, so let me stop. I want to talk about John for a second. And John, in your prep, and remember also the program is recommending that everyone do the behavioral contracting. And the recommendation is to use the bobdaviescoaching.com automated behavioral contracting, because there's additional coaching concepts on the program, as well as just automated for you to do your contract with your stated commitments and then the penalty, the consequence for non-performance. And then the weekly prep form. And what we're doing now in our calls are we're doing a study of the coaching commandments, which we will continue to add as we go on. And we'll bring back hot seat coaching as we go on as well. And so in John's prep, there's just one thing, John, that I want to point out to you, and that was key priorities for this coming week. You said not to forget to read daily from Bob's book. Do you remember sending that to me?
Right.
Okay, so what I want to point out is that is the language there, the wording there. So you want to shift that around. And instead of saying not to forget to read daily in the book, and let's see how you have that in your contract. Because when you do your behavioral contract, remember, I get a copy of it automatically. This is what it looks like that I am receiving. And once you submit your online contract, this is the email that I get. So I also see what you did, what you didn't do from last week, and it's very helpful. And so regarding I imagine you would have put that in personal. Read something motivational every day when wake up, evening, before sleep. So are you reading the day book in the evening or in the morning?
In the morning.
Okay. And yeah, so that looks fine on your contract. But I wanted to show you that when you motivate yourself with the reverse of an idea.
Well, when you read that, it sounded negative.
I'm sorry, it sounded, what'd you say?
When you read that statement that I put in my prep form, I heard it as negative because the first word was not.
That's right. Not to forget to read daily from Bob's book. And so what you want to do is you want to always motivate yourself with the desired result, not the undesirable difficulty. Because here, what the command subconsciously is to forget. The brain just hallucinates and doesn't even hear or see the intention. There's literal interpretation. Not to forget to read daily, which means your brain is being commanded to forget. Instead, you want to ask yourself, what's the desired result? What is it that I want to accomplish? And what you want to do is to read daily one page. So that's what you would say, as opposed to what you don't want to do, which is to forget. And I want to show you something about literal interpretation. And I'm going to play a video from a hypnosis presentation. And when I did this hypnosis presentation, you've seen, I think this starts off with showing people, can everybody see this?
Yeah.
This starts off with showing people, showing the illusion of being freezing, shivering. And so what I have people that are in a hypnotized state here, which means that they're bypassing the outer cortex. So they're not inhibiting, they're not reality testing suggestions. So as I give them a suggestion, they act as if it's real, literal interpretation. So let's watch a little bit of this.
Shivering cold, get covered up, get yourself, it's incredibly cold, very, very cold, incredibly cold, colder still, and colder still. Now they fix it again, they fix it, and it's back to normal temperature. Now it's time for the movie. It's time for the movies, and it's a funny movie. It's the funniest movie you've ever seen. It's an incredibly funny movie. It's the funniest movie you've ever seen. It's twice as funny as you've ever seen. The funniest movie is incredibly funny. It's funniest still. It's funnier still. The funniest movie you've ever seen. And
okay, well, you get the idea and literal interpretation. Anyway, okay. And so the reason that I don't know what this is doing, but the reason that I show you this is you can see, let's see what this is. Okay, so this is, I told them this was near Halloween, about this time of the year. and I told them they were all ghosts, and they were going to ghosts, and they were going to go in the audience and scare the audience. And you can see that this guy, look at the imagination, literal interpretation. The conscious mind is bypassed. He's not thinking this is ridiculous, this is stupid, I don't want to look foolish. He's bypassed that literal interpretation, and he's bypassed the inhibiting, the reality testing. And in fact, so what's left is literal interpretation of the suggestion, and he's acting as if he was a ghost. That's pretty bizarre, isn't it? Anyway, that's so that's the comment that I wanted to make about the literal interpretation. And again, be careful about saying and motivating yourself with what your desired result is, as opposed to the undesirable difficulty. Okay, so let me get into a little bit of content, and then we'll go into more of our study of the coaching commandments. So anything else on a check-in, Drew or John? And someone else joined us. Feel free to chime in or just remain silent if you like. Do you have, one of the things that I have forgotten to mention is the recording and charting of your intake. And I have done this for years and continue to do so. And this is really my recommendation, is that you do this in advance, is that you chart what you're going to be having in advance. So if you want a chart like this, you can download it from the BobDaviesCoaching.com website. It's one of the downloads that you'll see as soon as you log on. If you still need it or are not using it, let me know and I'll send this to you. It's basically, you can just see that I'm putting the day and the food and core and swim and exercise, don't worry about that, but the time, and it's just being specific in advance. You want to declare what you're going to be eating, because the whole key here, and this is why this is so fantastic for entrepreneurs and business owners, because the whole key here is a principle that flows right with the mindset of entrepreneurs and business owners, is advanced preparation. And so one of the biggest things that we do is we remove uncertainty from this plan. So I don't have to worry about what time I'm going to eat, or what I'm going to eat, when I'm going to eat, how much I'm going to eat. All that is precisely planned in advance. So now all I do is I don't worry about the thinking about what I'm going to do. I just execute. Same thing with your plan. You preset your outcomes in advance, and then you don't have to worry about what you're going to be doing. You just execute on a prescribed time, moment-by-moment basis. All right, so I want to look at some of the concepts that have happened since our last call, which would be the date of October 8th through the 22nd. And I want to focus on 3 calls, which would be the 9th, the 11th, and the 13th. And so let me pull up something, a copy of the book. And again, I'll make sure when I'm about ready to receive this in a format that I can give to everybody, and this is the finalized copy of the book. And so okay, so this is on the let's see what date this is. I've got the menu from the go-to meeting in the way of my. Okay, I've got that squared away. All right, so this is the October 9th call. Meditation can change your brain. And I'm looking at neuroscientists. Is this large enough that you can see this?
Yeah.
Yes, and I can even get it bigger. So neuroscientist Sarah Lazar, meditation can actually change the size of key regions in your brain. The meditation improves memory, more resilient under stress, making you more empathetic, compassionate, scientifically validated benefits of meditation, decreased stress, reduce symptoms associated with depression, anxiety disorder, pain, insomnia, enhance ability to pay attention. And when you engage in the behavior over and over again, it can cause physical changes in your brain. And this is referred to as neuroplasticity. You actually, so, I mean, it's amazing that that really the key to our weight management program isn't really having to do with the food plan. The real key to this is the maintenance of the plan through personal development and professional development. And that includes what we're talking about now, which is the what happens in the brain with meditation. And several areas of the brains actually have more gray matter in the meditators than in the non-meditating group. One area in particular was the frontal lobe, necessary for working memory and executive decision making. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the call, the frontal lobe is the part of the brain that has you do the harder thing, as opposed to what the instinct is, and the instinct is instant gratification, the easier thing. And if you look at the diagram here of the brain, you can see the tremendous amount of neurological activity in the meditating brain versus what's going on in the non-meditating brain, the baseline. And also, one area in particular, as you age, it is normal for the cortex to shrink in size. In this study, the 50-year-old meditators had the same size cortex as the 25-year-olds. And I don't know about, I think that we all agree, anything that we can do to keep our brain as healthy as possible is going to give us 30 years from now, 40 years from now, you're going to be happy, you're going to be grateful about the choices and decisions you're making today. And that goes into constant learning, constant reading, constant studying, being a student of personal performance, exercising for fitness, not for weight management. And then you put years and years together of this program, years and years together of eating the way that we eat, of studying the way that we study. And when you're in your 80s and 90s, you're going to have a clearly functioning brain, and you're going to be healthy until you die. And then you put on your tombstone, see, I told you I was sick. But other than that, the hippocampus, she goes on to say, the hippocampus, the area important in learning and memory, and also for emotional regulation. There's less gray matter in this region in people who have depression and post-traumatic stress. There was a decrease in the size for meditators. There's a decrease in the size of the amygdala, and the amygdala is in the limbic area of the brain. The emotional arousal area of the brain is the amygdala. For a decrease in the size of that for those who meditated. The more stress reduction people reported, the smaller the size of the amygdala. So again, remember, this is a science-based program, and I look at the science and I say that even if I don't understand it, just like my airplane example when I started off, even if I don't completely understand why something works, just trust in the science and the result will be a certainty. So also I've got a couple more days of the calls I wanted to talk about, and take your time, don't get hijacked. Let's see, I wanted to jump over to another call, and let's see what that is. These are fascinating, and it's when I read these myself, because I've done so much research on these, it's almost like if it was several months ago that I wrote this day concept, it's almost like it's a new concept for me, and that's pretty exciting. And if that gets me excited, I guess I'm easy to please, right? I wanted to talk about Stanley Milgram, and this content here is about our obedience to authority and our acceptance of authority. Now, I wasn't able to use these pictures that I'm going to show you now because of copyright issues, but let me go and I can use them in a PowerPoint, just not in something that's published. And here was the experiment. And the experiment was to see how far will people go in terms of inflicting pain where they think they're inflicting pain on a volunteer because an authority tells them to do so. And so this was the setup of the program. And let's see here, trying to bear with me. Okay, so am I still on webcam, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, so here's what you see. What we have is we have a student who is being tested. We have the teacher who was asking for responses to word pairs. This is supposedly a test about the influence of pain and memory. And then we had the experimenter who is the authority. Now, the experimenter and the students are in on the experiment. The subject, the real subject, is not the student, it's the teacher, the volunteer. And what they had was every time that there was an incorrect response. So here's an example of the student who's in on the experiment. And every time there was an incorrect response, the teacher was to execute a voltage of a shock as a pain. They were told that, again, this is to study the impact of pain and learning. And the pain intensity, the shock intensity, escalated from mild all the way up to severe, all the way up to XXX. And what they wanted to find out is, because an authority told you to do something, how far would somebody go? And would people execute the highest level of pain, of shock? Particularly when the student, again, who was in on the experiment, really complained, really in severe, said that they were very sick with a heart problem, they've got to stop, they're going to be seriously injured, and they yelled, and I'm going to show you a video of this. But here's what they saw. And when the teacher would say, I can't do this, this person, I'm going to hurt this person, the experimenter would say, please continue with the next higher shock level. And then again, the student would be wailing in pain, begging to stop, and the teacher would want to stop, and the experimenter would say, the experiment requires that you continue. Again, expressing authority. And then the next response would be, it's absolutely essential that you continue. And the next response would be, you have no other choice, you must continue. And in fact, the teacher even says, I'm not responsible for this person's health. Who's responsible? And the experimenter says, I'm responsible, please continue. And what they thought was that they would only get about 4% of people that would comply and go to the highest level of shock that's possible. What they found blew them away. What they found was that people respond to authority even when the authority is in conflict with their moral code, and they saw 65% went all the way to the end and gave and administered what they thought was the highest level of extreme shock. And the truth was that there was never any shock. It was all an act. Here's a short video. Watch this.
Now what I'm going to do is strap down your arm to avoid any excessive movement on your part during the experiment. Tight. This electrode is connected to the shock generator in the next room. And this electrode paste is to provide a good contact to avoid any blister or burn. Well, now I get a shock of 75 volts. Kind of did some yelling in there. 75 volts. Please continue. This will be at 3:30. Just how far can you go in this thing? As far as it's necessary. I can't feel the thing. shocks may be painful, but I'm not saying that they're hollering. Can't stand it. What if something happens to them? The experiment requires that you continue. Yeah, but I'm not going to get that man sick of that. He's hollering in there. And who's going to take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman? I'm responsible for it.
Oh, excuse me. There's the response. I'm responsible. What did I do? I guess repetition is the key, huh?
Now what I'm going to do is strap down your arm to avoid any excessive movement on your part during the experiment. Is that too tight? This electrode is connected to the shock generator in the next room. And this electrode paste is to provide a good contact.
Anyway, I won't go through this any further. Anyway, it was very interesting to see that people would go all the way to the final extreme, and that's compliance to authority. And the question becomes for us at this, where in your life are you conforming? Where in your life are you accepting what the norm is? This is a good question to ask ourselves. Where are you accepting what the norm? And that could be in accepting something as being difficult. It could be in accepting something as a limitation that is imposed by others, as opposed to challenging that. And then the herd senses the danger, the power of conformity. This is October 12th's call. And then another one I wanted to focus on, I think it's the 13th. Yeah, the herd senses danger. Conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth. And on this call, what was interesting about this is that this was a study. Geometric shapes appear, and you're asked to judge which line is longest. At the beginning, you're the first person directly to respond, and you can see that one of the particular lines are longer, clearly longer, and you respond. But they change your order as this experiment goes on to where you're the last person to respond, and the people in front of you are conspirators in the experiment. Which line is longest? Everybody see where I'm reading? It's obvious that the longest is number 4, but you have to wait before you can answer. The first person that answers pops on the screen. It's number 5. That's odd, you think. You look carefully at the lines. 4 is obviously longer than 5. Then the second answer appears, number 5 again. And the third answer, and the fourth answer, now it's your turn. And what they found was that even though they clearly, that this person could see that their answer was correct, they would switch. Most people would switch and choose the group's choice. When the experiment was conducted by Richard Crutchfield and Solomon Ash in 1953, 3/4 of the subjects ignored what they saw and went with the consensus of the group at least once during a series of trials. And that is, again, this is an instinct of conformity to the group for safety reasons. Anyway, that's my challenge to all of us today, and that is to just notice the conformity. Notice going with the crowd, notice going with the group, and what does that mean to you, and what's the antidote to doing that? And the antidote is always going to be the same, a commitment to personal excellence. And our commitment to personal excellence, of course, starts with the way that we eat. It starts with our routines and the entire program. Okay, so what I like to do now is to shift over into the Coaching Commandments study and take the next 20 minutes or so and talk about Coaching Commandments. And when we will build to the list that you already have. So if everybody has their Coaching Commandments, again, if somebody is missing coaching commandments, just send me an email, and I'll make sure that you get them. I'm working on getting a member section on my website, and when that is finished, then you'll be able to have things that are uploaded to the website, and you'll have access. You'll have access to previous calls if you want to listen to a call again, or of course if you miss a call. Right now what I'm doing is if somebody misses a call, I send it to them, and they can listen to it on their own. Yes?
I just sent you an email about the book because my work computer, I have a provided by New York Pipe, and they've got all this stuff, so I can't access the web to download.
Okay.
I'm hoping that maybe you could that as an email to my personal email.
Yes, and you sent me that email address?
Yeah, I did, and that got me thinking because, you know, I don't think that I have the coaching commandments as well.
Okay, yep. I'll make a note of that. Okay, I will send both of those out to you after our call. Okay, and so, yes, somebody else? Okay.
No, I just, thank you.
Okay, and so I believe that we left off with coaching commandment number 3, struggle negates, where do you need to surrender? And so that'll put us in coming back to coaching commandment number 4. I commit to live life fully, and I am committed to excellence. Now, if you think about this, what does it mean to be committed to excellence? That's the real question. What do you think it means to be committed to excellence?
I suppose to really be willing to do the necessary to get there, even when you really don't like it, you don't want to. Things maybe forces outside of you, or even that you don't, but you just are so committed that.
That's definitely right on about commitment to excellence, and it looks like what I want to do is I want to define what excellence is, because excellence is different for everyone. What is excellence for you is going to be different than what is excellence for someone else. So here's my definition of excellence, and it's really simple. And if you have your coaching notebook, you'll be able to see this in section 3 on page 5. It's commitment level. And I gave you this story about excellence. Years ago, I was speaking for RE/MAX in Canada when RE/MAX was the #1 real estate organization in their country. And they brought up across the stage their top producer, which was $16 million in production. Now, I wouldn't have recognized that person that did $16 million when the average production was $1 million. I wouldn't have recognized that person comparing them to the average. I would have recognized and rewarded that person if they committed to do $16 million and they did $16 million. And then with the same principle in mind, I would have brought up the part-time housewife, the single parent with 2 school children, who committed to do $3 million and did $3 million. And so here's the key. There's a commitment level that's different for all people. Not everybody has the same level of motivation. Not everybody has the same circumstances. Not everybody is committed to the same level. So this goes to my definition of what performance excellence is. Regardless of how high or how low your commitment level is, if you do what you said you would do, and if you get reasonable returns from your effort, I consider that to be elite performance. And so the person with the high level commitment and the person with the lower level commitments, what do they have in common? They have a level of commitment, some level of commitment in common. And so the criteria holds true regardless of what their level of commitment is. If they do what they say they would do and they get reasonable returns from their efforts, That's elite performance. One of the American management myths is to evaluate by ranking. Everybody does it. All organizations do it. Ranking isn't relevant because nobody has the same set of circumstances. Nobody has the same level of motivation. To compare you with other people who may be dysfunctional just isn't relevant. The key is, did you do what you committed to do? Did you get the results that you're committed to achieve? And if you go on a 0 to 10 and you put whatever your level of commitment is in your health, your business, and your personal life, it's a matter of executing to achieve that level. I call that excellence. Now, does it mean that you tolerate low-level commitments? No, it doesn't. But it means you make a decision. If you're not going to tolerate somebody who's not committed high enough, then you work with them to change and raise their level of commitment, or you fire them. The best scenario is to hire people that have high levels of commitments, that have high needs to generate income, particularly in a sales organization. But this definition of commitment to excellence, and what goes into this is really what program we follow, because this program is a blend of science and best practice principles. And what we know is that the elite performers, the top performers, they do what we're doing. They precisely prepare at the beginning of the week for the next 7 days. They weigh and measure their life. Their life is planned. They know what to expect. They set up their opportunities through their preparation. So I commit to live fully, and I am committed to excellence. Another sort of pet peeve that I have is about balance. And balance is not something that I'm an advocate of. That seems counterintuitive. Well, that would go to our conversation earlier about the herd mentality, because everybody seems to conform and say that balance is important. Well, it used to be everybody was conforming and saying you had to avoid fat and you had to avoid cholesterol. Now we know you need fat in your diet and you need to intake cholesterol. But anyway, the concept of balance, a good analogy is a slinky. If you have a slinky in your hand, in both half in one hand, the other opening in the other hand, and you want to get, what you have is energy in motion. In order to get balance, you have to stop the energy. It has to be a non-energized state. Well, in our life, a non-energized state leads to decay and to destruction. Remember, you're either growing or decaying. There is no middle ground. And so balance is something that I would suggest that you plan for. And what degree of balance do you want? As entrepreneurs, who this program appeals to, as entrepreneurs, there's going to be time you need to stay late in the office. There's going to be times where you need to work on the weekends. And as an entrepreneur business owner, you do what you need to do. And if it's all a matter of extremes. Any positive characteristic that's taken to its extreme becomes negative. Somebody who is very kind and very nice, take it to its extreme, it becomes negative. They get walked over. Somebody who's very aggressive and very outgoing, take that to the extreme, and it's not a positive, it goes to a negative where they push people away. They're viewed as demanding. And the same thing with work. If I am overcommitted and overstressing, it's that inverted U bell curve again. I'm going to get more done in the range of peak performance as opposed to the extremes of either not working enough or working too hard. And the solution is to block it in. Block in the time and commit to it. For example, if I want to take Friday off, there'll be a whole lot of reasons that I can come up with about why I shouldn't be taking Friday off. But if I decide that I want to do that and spend time with my wife, then knowing the type of personality that I am, I'd be better if I made a commitment to it. I take Friday off, no matter what, $100 fine if I don't. Put that into my contract. Now I'm leveraging human nature, and I'm being held accountable to it. So the commitment to excellence is what we are all involved with. So let's jump over to our next coaching commandment. What can be measured must be measured. We live in a life of measurement. Measurement starts the moment you're born. How tall are you? Fingerprints, your time of birth. It starts the moment we're born and it continues throughout life. And people who are in excellence are precise with their measurements. They know, particularly today, October 22nd, you've got November, December. 2 months and a week and a half or so left in the year. So what I'm coaching people to do in my one-on-one coaching is to take time and make it very objective and specific and look at the calendar. How many days are you going to work in November, and how many days will you work in December? And then look at your year to date and look at where you currently are now and look at what you need to accomplish to at least hit your minimum level objectives, and then get a visual for that represented so that you can identify the sprint that you're going to have over the amount of time that you're going to be working. And that involves measurements. So what must be measured, what can be measured, must be measured. And it just blows me away that 2 years ago when I did the research for this program, to see how haphazard I was in my eating. I didn't have a routine. I didn't have prepared foods weighed and measured. I ate when I was hungry. I snacked in between. I binged. I ate too much. I didn't have any boundaries whatsoever with quantities. And I thought I was healthy. I thought I was doing just fine. Walking around maintaining a weight of 215. If I got down to 210, I was really doing good. But that's the results of eating flour and sugar. That's the result of not being weighed and measured. And when I saw this and studied this and researched this and put this all together, it made such perfect sense. Because I chart how many calls I make. I chart how many contacts I make. I chart how many bookings I have. I chart revenue. I chart everything that can be measured in my business. I measure, and I wasn't doing that for food. Now I am, and now I'm enjoying results of excellence, which is in the 170s for myself, and blasting through limitations that I accepted mentally as being true, such as it was okay to be 210, 215. I didn't know any better, and you do now as well. All right, never get hungry, never get full. This is something you really don't have to worry about, because you know what time to eat, you know how much to eat, you know when to stop eating. You stop eating when you're done, when you've eaten all your food. And as a result of the low glycemic food, you're going to find that you won't get hungry and you won't be full. Number 7, I used to stuff my face, now I face my stuff. Has anybody had an experience with this where you noticed sensations and feelings that in the past you would have run right to the refrigerator? Anybody want to make a comment on that?
That's kind of what I was saying earlier, that last month in September, what I did.
I remember once that I go to bed pretty early before the rest of my family. And if I go to bed too early, I don't want to do that because I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night. I remember one time I woke up at about 11:30. My wife was still downstairs watching TV. And I automatically went right straight to the refrigerator. And I stopped myself, and I just didn't go in because what I was feeling wasn't hunger. And I just love this phrase. I used to stuff my face, now I face my stuff. And again, that's where the meditation comes in to help you to deal with the metacognition, the senses, and the being with the feelings that in the past you would have suppressed these feelings by eating. Number 8, use the 6 P's. Precise previous planning prevents poor performance. I can never harp on this too much. And this is where the what I call the client prep sheet comes in. Not all of you are doing this every week. I strongly recommend that you all do this and send it in to me. As we grow this program, my intention is to have hundreds of these sheets being emailed to me, and I'll read them all. And people are identifying what the most important activities are for them for the week, and what's important, what's urgent, and what their commitments are, and then receiving the contracts that come in automatically as well. So precise previous planning, everything from your workouts to your eating to your business performance to agendas. If you have a strategic alliance meeting, John and Drew, I don't know if do you coach your agents on forming strategic alliances?
Yeah.
So a strategic alliance meeting, there's really always two meetings that are occurring. One is I recommend monthly, and that's the meeting of the alliance itself. And then the second is the quarterly functions that occur. But everything that you do, my recommendation is the precise previous planning. You do from a checklist. You do from an agenda. You precisely plan in advance. And this goes back to my football coaching days, where every minute of a practice, a 2.5-hour practice, every minute was precisely planned. We would have a manager that would blow a foghorn and hold up a sign that had a number on it, large sign like a flip chart. And I hear the foghorn, and I look up and I see we're in period 5. Now I look at my practice card, because we had our 2.5-hour practice broken up into 5-minute intervals. Period 5, this is what I'm doing. And in fact, I might have this 5-minute period broken up into 30-minute segments. I'm running a bag drill for 30 seconds over here. We're doing curl drops for another 1.5 minutes. And then the last 2 minutes, we're coming over here with the secondary, and we're working on corner support, force, all precisely planned. And that lesson from coaching has stayed with me for my entire life. Number 9, and we'll go for another 5. And whoever's talking, we do hear that in the background. We'll go for another 5 minutes, and then we'll stop.
Good.
And so the what I can control, I must control. This reminds me of the Serenity Prayer. God help me to give me the courage to control what I can control. There you go again. Hold on.
Either that or tell them. They say we can review prison.
For some reason, I blank out when I read the Serenity Prayer here. It's let me see if I can mute this call, because we're getting well, I won't take the time to mute it. But anyway, the Serenity Prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So that's always in our mind. And last coaching commandment for today, number 10. My lifestyle is an asset, not a liability. So what I mean by this, obviously, is if you're not getting enough sleep, your lifestyle is a liability. If you're doing anything, ingesting something that's a poison, a toxic stressor, alcohol, flour, sugar, then that's your lifestyle's not an asset. It's a liability. One of the most beautiful things about the purity of this food plan is it's the way the digestive system was meant to process food. It's the way that we were meant and built and genetically coded to eat. So I love what Ted Turner says: early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise. This also is something we can control. You can control what time you go to bed. You can control what time you wake up. You can control that you're using the food plan. You can control that you're studying a student. You're being a student of personal performance and development and constantly learning. You can control the pace of your aging. So there's two types of aging. One is chronological. You can't control that. But the other is physiological. You have a good degree of control. Even though you might have a genetic predisposition to some disease, your behavior and your environment can affect whether genes are turned on or turned off. So because you might be predisposed genetically to diabetes, but because of the way that you eat, that genetic coding never gets turned on. And so again, you're going to thank yourself 30 years from now. When you're as healthy as can be, when you're fit as can be, you're going to remember back here in October 22nd, you're going to remember the choices that you were making. All right, so that's our program for today. And the next call is going to be,
The 5th.
let's see when we have that. The next call at the same time, I've got Wednesday, November 5th. And so have a great week, everybody. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you on the next call. Be precisely planned, be excited, passionate, and we'll see you on the next call. Thanks for joining.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.